On this edition of Larry the Golf Guy, we have the great pleasure of speaking with the great Bobby Clampett. And for me, this was probably one of my most fun episodes. Bobby was someone I had not met before, but we're about the same age, and growing up in Connecticut, I remember him just winning all of these national titles while I was just playing in local junior tournaments in Connecticut. He was such a star, tremendous elite junior amateur career, and tremendous collegiate career. He started at a young age, growing up in Carmel under the tutelage of Ben Doyle. He was sort of the original Homer Kelly golf machine poster child, which is what Ben taught. But we talk about his journey through the game, including coming on the PGA Tour at a very young age, being just a star the first year or two, and then the struggles he had after that, and never really attaining the greatness that he had at the outset. And we talk through that, and then go on to talk about his career as a broadcaster and time at CBS and on Champions Tour and full-time instructor and author now. And along the way, we get his thoughts on the equipment and what's happened to the pro game with the response to live and much, much more. Just a joy to talk to him. I think, although this is one of the longer episodes we've done, I think you'll all enjoy it. I sure did. He has an amazing memory, and for some really wonderful stories that I think you'll all enjoy listening to, as I did. So with that, up next on this edition of Larry the Golf Guy, the great Bobby Clampett. Well, welcome to another edition of Larry the Golf Guy, and it is really my great pleasure and honor to sort of have with us the great Bobby Clampett, who I will say, is roughly my age. And while I was toiling around in Connecticut at local junior tournaments, Bobby was nationally winning all sorts of stuff. So I have a great memory of all those days. We'll talk about all of that. Bobby, thank you so much for making time to chat with us today.
Oh, it's so great to be with you, Larry. This is fun.
So just as I like to do with most of my guests, just to kind of give people some context, I know you grew up in Carmel, California. Maybe just to get us rolling, how and when were you first introduced to this great game of golf?
Well, I tell people that when I was 10 years old, I retired and took up the game of golf. And I've been retired ever since. So the reality is my mom went through a divorce, and my mom and I moved to into a condo at Quail Lodge in Carmel,
Okay.
California. And Ed Haber was the builder, developer, president of Quail Lodge. Nice little resort, 90 room lodge with Robert Graves golf course. And I had been bugging my mom for 4 years. I want to learn to play golf. And she's like, yeah, just one more thing. And I hammered on her because there was something inside me that wanted to learn the game of golf. It was a game that really I took to. And even though I'd never really played it, I'd seen it a little bit, a couple people hitting golf shots, especially the first time I ever saw a golf shot hit was at the Olympic Club in San Francisco,
Oh, wow.
where
Okay.
we used to live. And that really, the beauty of being outside and hitting this little white ball in what was like Golden Gate Park to me, which was my
Yeah.
favorite park in the whole world.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I was really drawn to the game. And so she said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ask Mr. Haber if he's got any program for a 10-year-old and what you can do. So sure enough, he gave me a job, and he was single. My mom was single. So I think it had something to do with that, right? But that's just the way the world works
Right.
sometimes. And,
Exactly.
and so he gave me a job, and I wasn't paid, but I was fed, and I got all the golf privileges I wanted.
Oh, wow.
And so I uh, began taking lessons from Lee Martin, the host pro there. My mom bought a series of 10 junior lessons from him for $100. And my stepfather, who still loved me and cared for me, bought me a set of clubs for Christmas that year, and I was off to learning the game of golf. And after 4 lessons, Lee Martin sent a letter back to my mom with the check enclosed saying, I don't want you to pay me for lessons anymore. I think we can make a golfer out of your son.
Wow. And I'm
One of
sorry,
the
and how old
greatest.
are you at this point, Bobby? This is
I'm
what
10
age?
years old.
10 years
10
old.
years old.
Okay.
So I'm forever indebted to Lee for his love and graciousness. Mom was going through some hard times, and and paying it forward. Now I coach his grandson, Alec Barker.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That's
and
great.
and Lee is still teaching. He's in his mid 80s. He's down in Southern California and still teaching there at Riverside Country Golf Club, and he's an amazing proponent of the impact zone and impact-based teaching. So he's just love him to death. But so yeah, so I started applying within 6 months. I entered my first junior tournament.
Wow.
Um, Still remember, I'll never forget. It was at Coyote Point in Burlingame, California.
Okay.
And I'm playing the sixth hole, and I have a putt about this long. And all the guys that I'm playing with, they just get up and go to the next tee. They're not even watching. So I just pick up my marker and put it in my pocket. So little did I know that Walt McConnell, the head of the Junior Golf Association in Northern California and one of the legends of junior golf in the country, was sitting in a cart right behind the green behind a tree and
Oh
watching.
my. Oh my.
And he comes out of his cart and he says, "What's your name, son?" And I said, "Bobby." And he said, "Did you just pick up your marker?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "You can't do that in tournaments. There are no gimme putts. Go back there, put that marker back, and go finish that putt." And so I did. And that was my first ever competitive round. I didn't know that there weren't, it
Wow.
was like everybody was leaving. So
Wow. I love it. That's a great story. I love it. So at some point, as an early teenager, you get connected with Ben Doyle, right? At some point?
I did. When I was 13 and I was an 8 handicap, Ben became the director of instruction at Quail Lodge, and Lee took a head pro job in Florida.
Ah,
And he was saddened by that. He needed to do it for his family, but he was saddened by that because he really wanted to continue working with me.
sure.
But Ben and I really hit it off, and Ben took over the reins. And by the time I was 15, I was down to scratch and really made some tremendous improvements. Ben was the first authorized instructor of Homer Kelly's The Golfing Machine and had come from the Seattle Tacoma area where he had met and was tutored under Homer. And so that's where the association with the golfing machine and me being kind of the poster boy for the golfing machine in the early days came about.
Got it. Yeah, very much remember that. And so you're, advancing quite quickly as a junior player. I know you won a bunch of titles, NCGA juniors, Western juniors, California State juniors. The one that I remember, just because I was a schlepper in Connecticut trying to sort of qualify for the national one, is the Insurance Youth Classic. And just, for our listeners, today we have the American Junior Golf Association, which is like a little PGA Tour, it seems like.
Yes.
But different back then. There weren't, that kind of series of high profile type event. But the IYC, the Insurance Youth Classic, was one of them. And so let's talk a little about that because I just have this memory of this picture of you playing in that at 15 and with Eddie Pierce, who was, of course, a very, skilled pro, because I think that the PGA pros, there was a group of them that played with you in the sort of final rounds, but that had
Right.
to be one of your first big national tournaments. Talk to us about what that experience was like.
Well, so I was 15 and it was the first time I'd ever qualified for a national tournament. I actually went down to Southern California for the qualifier. There were two different qualifiers you had to get through, and I remember getting it up and down from the front bunker on the 18th hole at Costa Mesa Country Club, and was, hit a really good bunker shot and made about an 8 foot putt, and to get in on the number to
Oh,
qualify.
on the number. Okay.
Yeah. And so I uh, flew, first time I'd ever flown out of the state of California to
Wow.
Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
So 15 years old, they housed us with a really nice family there, and the family would drive me to the golf course every day. And it was kind of an interesting time period because my whole game was really starting to show signs of really good things. I had shot 68, first time I'd ever broken 70 in a junior tournament at Salinas Fairways in the Salinas City Junior. And even though I shot 75 and 76 the other two rounds, the 68 stood out as I'd
Sure.
never shot anything close to 400 par before.
Yeah.
And I still remember hitting a 3 wood on a par four second shot about 8 feet and making the putt for birdie on a really hard hole. And so those kinds of things were getting me really excited about the game. I was
Sure.
a lot of improvement, and I was always really motivated when I saw improvement in my game.
Sure.
So when I went to Colorado, had to make all the adjustments, 7,000 feet or
Right.
6,000
Altitude. Right.
feet, and,
Yeah.
and trying to figure all that out. And so the first two rounds of the Big I were qualifying rounds. And I remember shooting 77, 75 in the qualifying, kind of finishing in the middle of the pack of those that earned the spot in the final 60 to play the final 2 days with the pros. So they
Right.
invited the tour pros in, Eddie Pierce being one of them. And I shot a 73 the first round when it counted, and I was tied for the lead.
Mm.
And I was pretty excited about that and went out the next day and played great. And I remember getting on about 14th, 15th hole, and I was one under par for the round. There
Wow.
are no scoreboards out there, so I don't know
Right.
how I stand. And I'm just trying to shoot the lowest score I can, which is always the best philosophy.
Yeah.
And I had this 5 footer for par, and I'm so nervous. And I said to Eddie, I'm really nervous about this putt. And he said, My God, you've been knocking these in like every hole. Just go do what you're doing and don't worry about it. And he had this kind of laissez-faire,
Yeah,
relaxed,
that's Eddie. Sure.
easygoing mode about him. But I made that putt. I went on to shoot 71, won the tournament by 4 shots, and I actually finished tied for sixth among the pros because we played the same set of tees.
Right. I remember reading this. Yeah, I remember that.
And Greer Jones won. And I remember vividly thinking, this I may be able to do this one day as a profession.
So that was
If
kind
I
of a
can,
key event for you. This is
it
when you
was.
first
It's like
started thinking about this, that
I was
could be a
proving to
line. Yeah.
myself that
Yeah.
I might have the ability to do this for a living. And of course, that was the time that when you win a tournament like that, you start getting recruited by a lot of the uh, universities around the country to come play golf for them. So that was the start of my being recruited, and then I ended up skipping my junior year of high school
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
and then graduating because I and graduating a year early. So by the time I went to college, I was barely 17 years old.
Wow. I was trying to do the math on some of this. That explains it because it looked like you were 17 when you went, and I was trying to think. So that's wild. You skipped the graduated early. So talk about the recruiting process a little bit. I'm sure, that's such a major thing. And of course, you had sort of, I ticked off some of the other tournaments you won as a junior. How did you end up picking BYU?
So it really came down to there were about 6 schools that recruited me. I really wanted to go to Arizona State, and I called the coach, George Bautel, and George said, "I'm sorry, Bobby, we're full here. We don't have any room for you."
Really? Wow.
So um, it came down to Brigham Young and Stanford University. A
Ah,
little side story about George Bautel. So years later,
yeah.
George became a tour official on the PGA Tour. And so we're playing at Avenel, which was a brand new course in Washington, D.C. And
Yeah.
I hooked this tee shot on this par five, and I was over in this junk, and there were like some old kind of gopher holes. And so I called for ruling, and George came over and he looked at the gopher holes and he goes, you know, one of the biggest mistakes I ever made as a college coach was not recruiting you. Take a drop.
That's great. I love it. That's great. That's great.
And so, uh, yeah, so I ended up torn between going to BYU and going to Stanford. And I went on a recruiting trip to both places. Now, Stanford their program was a bit in a flux where Bud Finger, the longtime head coach, had just been let go. And they were looking for a new coach. And John
Mm.
Brody, the former
Yeah.
49er
Just
quarterback,
passed away the other
just
day,
passed
sadly.
away
Yeah.
this past week,
Yeah.
was the interim coach, but only handling things, um, not as a full-time coach. So he actually took me on my recruit trip and
Mm.
was my host on the recruit trip. And but when I looked at my recruit trip at BYU and my recruit trip at Stanford, there was something about the student body at BYU that really attracted me because we would have time on our own to talk to the students and roam around campus.
Mm.
And the sense I got in talking to the students at BYU was they're a lot easier to talk to. It's not as intense.
Hmm.
At Stanford, you could tell there was a lot of pressure on the student,
Sure.
and
Sure.
and um, and there was something about the coach. He and I really clicked. And it didn't hurt that I'm a very avid snow skier and that he and Robert Redfords were best friends and that we had a free season pass to Sundance Ski Resort as a member of the golf team.
That
That
didn't
didn't hurt
hurt. That didn't
either.
hurt. I
And it
know
also didn't
you.
hurt that on my recruit trip, we had dinner with Robert Redford and his daughter.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's
So I I just really clicked with BYU, and it was a great school for me to go to.
And
And
yeah, and what a record. I mean, three-time All-American, twice the Fred Haskins Awards, nation's sort of the Heisman Trophy for college golf, the top collegiate golfer, all these, I mean, two California State amateurs, of course, at Pebble Beach back then, the Western Amateur, Porter Cup, low amateur at the Masters, US Open in 78, Masters in 79. I mean, just must have been a great experience, like your college experience those years.
it was a great environment for me, and it there were several things that were happening. One, my freshman year, it wasn't easy at first, right? My
Right.
freshman year, quick story. So
Yeah.
in order to qualify for the first tournament at BYU, you go through two 72-hole qualifyings,
Wow, that's a lot.
right?
Yeah.
So the first qualifying, I shot two over par at Riverside Country Club and finished sixth on the team. And so I went into coach's office and said, "So just want to check in with you, coach. What do I need to do in the second qualifying to make the team? Because my goal was to play in the first tournament." Thinking he'd say, "Well, if you finish like fourth or fifth, we're taking six guys, so yeah, you're right there." He looks at me sternly in the eye and he goes, "If you don't win the next qualifier, you're not going."
Wow. Wow.
He says, "I've got three seniors and a junior ahead of you. You're playing for two spots."
Wow. Wow.
And I went, whoa. So this big shift in focus came upon me, and I went into, I love what Justin Leonard would always, he called it double secret probation, where you just go into this intense focus and in my practice and my training, and I got ready for the next qualifier. In the first round, I set the course record at Riverside, shot
Wow.
64,
Wow.
and I went on to win the qualifier. And then the first tournament, I ended up finishing top on our team and finished second in the tournament.
Wow.
So I was playing fourth man for BYU the first tournament, and after finishing second in being the top guy on the team. He put me number one. I never played anything but number one the rest of that year and every year since.
Wow, wow, that's awesome. And you sort of, again, you're sort of, doing great, as a collegiate golfer, great during all these amateurs. You turned pro after 3 years. What was sort of your thought process? You sort of feel like you'd have kind of accomplished everything at that level and wanted to get to the next level?
Yeah, I won two college tournaments my freshman year, four my sophomore year, and six my junior year,
Wow, so you have 12 altogether. That's a lot.
which is still an NCAA record for
Yeah, I was
most
going to say, I
tournaments.
mean, that's going
Three.
past Rose Zhang, past Tiger. That's a lot.
Yeah, and so with that, and in my junior year, three of the tournaments I won were double digit wins. I won by 11, 12, and 13 shots.
Oh my gosh.
So it was,
This
to
is, yeah,
say, the 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 word was out and the opportunity to turn pro, and I was tired of being a poor kid that was wondering how he's going to find enough money to go play some tournaments in the
right.
summertime.
Yeah, this is
And I,
pre-NIL days, right?
yeah, and so all of a sudden now I've got agents saying you're gonna get to go play this tournament and this
Sure,
tournament, and we're
sure,
gonna guarantee you, this amount of money, and I'm like, boy, this sounds pretty good to me. I guess I can always come back to school if I need to. And so I made the decision at the age of 19. I got my
wow.
AA degree in French, and at the age of 19, I left school and finished a couple tournaments, and then just turned 20 and turned pro in July of 20.
And so you're sort of you didn't go through Q school, right? You were getting invites and stuff, and then you did well enough to qualify?
Yeah. So back then, the tour is always changing the rules, right?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
back then, qualifying school was the main way to get on the tour, and it's hard. There were
Very.
a lot of really good players that
Yeah,
struggled getting through qualifying school and
sure,
making the tour, and even guys that had really big, successful careers. Mark O'Mara really struggled, and Curtis Strange struggled to get on tour, and
sure.
a lot of these guys. So I really didn't want to have to go through tour school, and this was the first year the tour did something where they made a determination that anybody who played up to 10 tournaments on the tour. Now, back then, this was a non-exempt tour. So if you were
Right.
outside the top 60 money winners, you
Yeah,
had to
that
go.
was right. So just to remind people, so Gary McCord, who we've also had on the podcast,
Yep,
1983 was the fall exempt tour. So you're right before that change.
correct.
Yeah,
So, and as a non-member, the most amount of qualifying sponsor exemptions you could get were three. That was your maximum.
oh, okay.
So as the top amateur, I didn't have a problem with my agent getting any exemption I pretty much wanted. And so that was a benefit, but you have to make the cut in order to get to the next tournament.
Right.
So first tournament I played was Quad Cities. I shot even par and missed the cut.
Yeah.
Ouch. So now I got to use a second sponsor's exemption. So I go to the next tournament, I make the cut, but kind of finish middle of the pack. And the key is you have to do this within these three sponsors exemptions and up to 10 tournaments. You have to make $8,000 in prize money, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's pretty much you got to finish in the top 10 in a tournament.
Right. Right. Right.
Otherwise, you're not gonna do it. So long and short, I had played four tournaments, made two cuts, missed two cuts. Come to the fifth tournament, it's the Buick Open
Mm.
in Flint, Michigan. And this is my third sponsor's exemption, so there's no more. So I go into that double secret probation mode and hyper focus. I make the cut, and I shoot a little bit better in the third round, and in the fourth round, I shot 70 in the third round, which was my lowest score of the week so far. And and then I figured on the board that to make the $8,000, I had to shoot 67 the final round. So I had in mind, clearly in my head, how am I going to shoot 67? And so I shot 35 on the front nine, and now I've got to shoot 32 on the back nine. And I ended up shooting 32 on the back nine
Wow. Wow.
and getting my card. So that's how that happened.
Wow. And so, and 81, I know you're, tied for 14th on the money list. You win the Southern Open in 82, do well at Pebble. I'd sort of forgotten about it. I always think of the 82 US Open, of course, with Nicklaus and Watson, and you're number three, right behind him.
It's so funny. I walked into Pebble Beach. They got this new kind of Hall of Fame at Pebble
Yeah,
Beach,
yeah, yeah.
and I walked in there, and they have all the U.S. Opens and the top five finishers and all the U.S. Opens, and the only one that they didn't put the top five finishers in was 82.
Really?
Yeah, of course, they put Tom Watson winning and Jack Nicklaus finishing second, and so it's like, I'm the only hometown guy
Yeah, I was
that's
going to say you're the
ever
local
been
boy.
in the top five of the
Right,
U.S. Open at Pebble, and you don't
right.
even put me in there.
That doesn't seem right.
And
But
so
so I mean, what was life like on tour for you? I mean, was there any surprises? I mean, at all, and I'm just sort of curious, kind of what your experience was like on tour.
I would say tour life is hard. It's lonely. It's very fulfilling when it comes to the golf side of things, but personally, it's lonely.
Yeah.
So, you got your evenings. That's where I learned to play the guitar and started traveling with my guitar.
Wow. Got guitar and
Um,
golf clubs. Yeah.
yeah. So, the thing I really treasured was the friendships I developed with
Sure.
a lot of especially the Jack Nicklauses, the Arnold Palmers, the Johnny Millers, Billy Caspers that became my very close friends. Um, and then some of the current guys on tour at the time, like Morris Satowski and Don Pooley, and they became really good friends for life. Larry Nelson, a lot of really quality people. And then as I got older and I wasn't the little kid on the block, uh, then other guys like the Bernhard Langers and Tom Lamons and
Sure.
David Frost and Gary Hallbergs and John Cooks. We all became really tight friends.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, and I think it's the friendships that meant the most.
That
Being
ma
out.
that makes sense. So I know you had been with Ben for a while, and maybe just curious, talk about sense is, you sort of thought maybe your game had plateaued or whatever. You started sort of uh, talking or looking at different instructors and stuff. I mean, maybe you can talk about a
Yeah,
little about that because I know that ultimately, not only obviously affected your game, but even your thinking about teaching which you're
correct.
doing now.
Yeah, I mean, this was really my story of why I got into teaching and what propelled me to do that. So, um, Ben and I were, we had kind of reached a plateau where he kept telling me the same thing over and over, and it wasn't changing anything.
Right.
And so, I got talked into, well, why don't you go innocently get some opinions from some of the so-called best teachers in the game,
Right.
guys that were teaching other touring pros. So I started this journey of doing that, and I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but then I realized all of them were what we call style-based teachers.
Hmm.
They teach, they want you in certain positions, and they change your style to match what they think is the best style you should have, which is the best style everybody should have. And so I went through a process of working really with three and four different teachers. And by the time I got done with this, I was a mess.
Yeah.
I was like, golly, where is I don't have it my swing that I used to have. And
Right.
so I had one teacher say to me, you have more moving parts in your swing than an erector set.
Oh
I
boy.
had I had another teacher say to me, you've got to you literally have to give up everything you've ever thought about the game of golf and
Oh
start
my.
over.
Oh gosh.
And so I was at a point where my confidence was at an all-time low, and I thought,
Sure.
well, all right, let's go for it. Let's completely change my swing. And the bottom line is, I never cracked the top 80 ever again.
Yeah.
Had
Yeah.
very limited success. And I worked hard at changing my swing, really hard.
I'm sure.
So the bottom line was that what it taught me, and as I got the opportunity to start working for CBS back in
Right.
'91, my
Right.
first telecast with them at the PGA Championship. And that started a journey of studying the game from a different perspective.
Hmm.
And by the time '96 rolled along, I was full time with CBS. And it wasn't long after that that the BizHub Swing Vision camera was
Right.
developed,
Right. That's right. Yeah, sure.
which I really, and I was taking a step back. I was hardly playing much golf at all. In fact,
Right.
there was a time period there that I made a determination I'm not going to play golf for a while. I just gave up the game entirely.
Wow.
And all I did was broadcast, and I was having young kids, and so raising kids and
Sure.
broadcasting, flying my little airplane to events. And so we I just focused on the television side of things. And then when the BizHub Swing Vision camera was developed, I took a real interest in it. And Moxie Mike and Charlie and John in the Moxie truck would queue up film for me in the evenings, and I would start studying the best players in the game. And all of a sudden, it hit me like a brick. All these golf swings are so different, but what they created impact is virtually the same.
Sure.
And as I was doing my roving work, I noticed with Tiger and with Phil and VJ and Sergio and all the best players, all their divots were exactly the same, which was what they created impact was exactly the same, but they
Sure.
had such different styles. Sergio was leading the tour in driving accuracy and total driving, and Peter Costas was doing the commentary about it and was showing how laid off the club was on the backswing. And Ernie Els was laid off, but then he started changing his backswing to get more, and he got worse. So, it's like, okay, all these instructors, all they talk about is the proper plane you're supposed to be in at the top of your backswing. And then Jim Furyk comes along and just
Oh,
wipes
yeah.
everybody off the
Right.
planet.
Right.
And so it just dawned on me, I've got to develop my own swing. And so I started the process back in '98. I started the process of just starting to build my own swing. And I wasn't playing at all, but I would take a club and a couple days a week in my house, swing and start building my own swing, swinging in the carpet, and looking at a backswing and a downswing to create good impact.
Yeah.
And I started grooving that and started playing like once a month. And then all of a sudden the entries for the US Open at Pebble Beach in the year 2000 came along, and I go, well, shoot, I got to throw in my entry for that. So I threw in my entry, and of course, I had no exemptions. And I go to the local qualifier. I haven't played a tournament in years, and I got an old set of clubs, and I end up finishing on a windy day. I shot 73 and tied, got into a playoff, and I ended up with a second alternate position, whatever that means. So
Wow. Okay. This is interesting. Yeah.
So then I go up to or in Washington D.C. where I'm slated for the regional, the last qualifier, and we're covering the Kemper Open up there with CBS. So I'm
Right.
already up
Right.
there, and I snuck out one afternoon and went and played 9 holes of the 36 that we were going to play in the qualifier. So I'd never played the course before, so I only got 9 holes in. So I'm really not even prepared, but I don't even think I'm going to get to play because I'm an alternate. So I get out there the morning of the qualifier, and there's like 190 golfers playing, and this is the main tour site for the
Right.
U.S. Open qualifier. So all the
Right.
tour
So
players.
just to let people know to fill it in. So what the USGA generally does, and sometimes they do it near the Memorial or, maybe they're at Kemper, is for the touring pros for that second level, they'll do it near wherever the tour stop is. And so for back then, it sounds like it was Kemper in DC.
Correct. And so I ended up through their system. I was fourth alternate. So I don't know if I'm going to get to play or not. Driving range is so full. There's only room for like 30 guys on the driving range, and
Oh boy.
everybody's waiting for a spot, and I'm not
Oh
even in
gosh.
the field. I don't know. So I go underneath the pine tree at Woodmont Country Club and starts hitting pine cones and doing my drills that I had been doing forever. And so at least I got my body warmed up. And all of a sudden I'm under the pine tree, and they go, "Bobby Clampett, report to the 10th tee." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So haven't hit a practice ball, haven't hit any practice putts, and just go right to the tee.
Unbelievable.
I'm in, and simple little par five, I make a six. And the second hole, I hit two not very good shots on an easy par four and two putt from 50 feet for a par. Third hole, not a good tee shot, a poor second shot, another bogey.
Oh
I'm two
boy.
over after three, and I'm wondering, am I ever gonna even break 80 today? This is really sick. And then I start thinking, okay, I developed this drill called the line drill, and I developed this whole theory about the low point in the swing, where the low point should be. And I'd been working on my own game, and I realized when I got out on the course, my low point wasn't where it needed to be. So I drew a line, and I put the club behind the line. I made some practice swings. Just took 2 minutes to do this, right? And I realized that the tension that was building in my arms and body were so tight that I wasn't loading the club at the top of my backswing like I can. And so I tapped into that feeling and suddenly started making good divots with the line drill. So I get to the next hole, par three, it's a 4 iron, and I capture this feeling and I rifle this 4 iron about 12 feet from the hole and make the putt for birdie.
Wow.
And then I get to the next hole, par five, and I rifle a drive down there. Beautiful three wood, wedge it in there about 8 feet, and make that for birdie. Suddenly I'm back to even par after just two holes of making this change. I went on to shoot 11 under par the next two days
Wow. Wow.
and qualified for the US Open. And it was quite the turnaround, right?
Absolutely.
So now I'm playing the US Open at Pebble Beach. I haven't played a tour event in years. And now it's the US Open at Pebble Beach under the most extreme conditions.
Yeah.
And as fate would have it, after 10 holes, I'm four under par and in the lead. Tiger's playing right behind me. He's at two under. And I got pictures, of me on the front page of the leaderboard. And I ended up shooting 68 the first
I
round. Tiger
remember
shot
that.
65.
Yeah.
And I made the cut and struggled with the delays, and playing with 3 hours of sleep was really hard. Um, and so I didn't finish all that well, but I think I finished 30th or something like that. But it was a great experience, and it came in a contract renegotiation year with CBS, so my it increased my salary greatly.
There you go. That's perfect
And I was
timing.
wearing CBS stuff as I'm playing in the U.S. Open, so they love that. So
I
it was
bet.
fun. Jim Nance walked all 72 holes with me.
Did he really?
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
for me. He seems like, it's funny. The last time I was at Pebble, we get out to whatever, people know Pebble, goes out. It's not like, of course, where the ninth green is back to the clubhouse. It goes out. And so there's that little snack shop. I can't remember now if it's after the ninth green or somewhere out there. And, and all of a sudden I turn around and Jim drives up in a golf cart with his kid and their friend. They wanted to get something to eat, and he stepped out. He said, "Gentlemen, how are you enjoying your day?" And he just couldn't be nicer. I mean, it's the one time I've ever interacted with him. But I mean, you had besides Jim,
Genuinely.
of course. You had of course Frank Cherkinian, the legendary one who was there. I think when you started. Maybe talk a little bit about what your CBS experience was like.
Yeah, early years at CBS were fantastic, and Jim and I are still dear friends. We've always enjoyed working together. Frank was amazing, as few people realize. He was producer and director. He
Right.
did the role of two people, and he was an amazing talent. And he hired me and was one who I would say championed me. We had a relationship where he could give me feedback. He really wanted me to be the best I could be. And it didn't take he didn't invest a lot of time in it, but he had an amazing ability to listen to what was going on in the telecast as he's producing and directing, and would make little mental notes and occasionally mention things to me. And we just had that kind of relationship. And when he was booted out, it was a very uh, stark change at
Sure.
CBS
Sure.
from then on. And
Yeah.
so the environment at CBS was never the same
Mm.
uh, after Frank left. And I think for everybody, it just it lost its sense of family that Frank had really
Sure.
created.
Yeah, and he was a legend, that's for sure. So you're at CBS. I know you were there for 10, 11 years. I know you did stuff with
I was there
Turner.
29 years, Larry.
29. Okay. Oh,
Yes.
going back to 91. Okay, that's right. Yeah.
91 to
Yeah.
2019. My last one was Tigers winning the Masters. Now,
Wow,
that
I did. Oh, that's right, because you were doing the math. That's
I
right, the
was doing
majors, right?
internet for the
Yeah, in
Masters.
Masters, right. I stand corrected. I remember that. And what a day. I mean, and I was going to say when I saw the 91 PGA, of course, that's John Daly bursts on the scene at Crooked Stick. That was such an incredible story. That's a pretty neat one to have as your introductions.
So I'll tell you how that happened. So I got hired by TNT. Um, go right back to the beginning of that story. So
Yeah.
I was actually having some construction work done on my house in North Carolina, and I called my agent and I said, I'm playing the 2 weeks prior to the PGA. I'm playing the 2 weeks after the PGA, but the PGA I'm not playing, and I can't go home because the contractors booted me out of the house. Is there anything for me to do the week of the PGA? Calls me back and he says, I got good news, bad news. And I said, what's the good news? It was the broadcasting position open with TNT. It's going to be their first PGA championship. They're building a team of broadcasters. Are you interested? I said, sure. I said, what's the bad news? Well, there's 29 other guys that want the job.
Oh boy.
I said, okay. So I said, all right, TNT Atlanta, why don't you set up an interview for me with the key guys at TNT, and I'll fly down to Atlanta and meet with them for lunch or something. So we did that, and I picked one of the 5 worst weather days of the year to fly to Atlanta. And I'm in my little single engine private plane, dodging through level 4 and 5 thunderstorms into Peachtree DeKalb Airport. And I land, and I'm met there at the airport with an umbrella and practically given the job on the spot.
Wow.
And so that's how I got the job. Um, And after 2 days, I didn't think things went very well. I was a roving reporter, and the equipment we were having challenges with. And day one, Frank Jerkinian had invited one of the broadcasters in to meet with him afterwards, and she came out crying in
Oh
tears, and
boy.
it
Oh
didn't go
boy.
well.
Oh boy.
So day two, I am the one that gets asked to go meet with Frank Jerkinian in his office after day two, and I'm like, oh God. Okay, here we go. I'm nervous as can be. And he sits me down and he goes, Clampett, sit down. And I said, yes, sir. He goes, I know talent when I see it. I said, yeah, I'm sure you do, sir. Yeah. And you've got talent. And I'm like, okay, but and he continues and he goes, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, well, we're got the show with TNT, and we're gonna do the on the range stuff. He goes, well, I want you to work for me. And I go,
Wow.
doing
Wow.
what? He goes, doing just what you're doing, a roving reporter. I said, but you don't have roving reporters at CBS. He said, my God, I invented the position, you asshole. Of course and I can bring it back. I just haven't found the right person to bring it back, and I want you to bring it back for us.
Wow. Wow. That's
And
cool.
and so day one, first day ever working for CBS, no training, right? Zero training. John Daly story.
Yeah.
He's leading the PGA championship. I knew John because we were playing on tour together. And on the 11th hole, his caddy, Squeaky Medlin, who was
Yeah. Yeah.
Nick Nick Price's
Nick Price's
caddy,
caddy, right?
he
Yeah.
was just hanging out there because Nick couldn't make it. And so he ended up caddying for John. And on the 11th hole, John hits this unreachable par five and two and has this 50-foot eagle putt. And Squeaky takes the flag out and just for a second put it on the green and then put it back in the hole. And so the PGA, the rules officials said this could be a two-stroke penalty because
Oh boy. He's
he
pointing out the line or
pointing
something.
out
Yeah.
the line
Yeah.
to John and touching the green. You're not allowed to do that. So I hear what's going on in the background, and I had seen what had happened, and so John is being whisked away before he's signing his scorecard. He's being whisked away to the PGA Rules trailer. So I say to him, I said, "You want me to brief you on what's going on?" He says, "Yeah, get in the car, Bobby." So I turn my mic off. So it's just John and I in the back seat of this car, and I'm telling him, "Here's what happened." And all you got to do is say that the putt broke the opposite direction of where Squeaky placed the flagstick, which proves it wasn't showing you the line. That's all you got to say, and you'll be free. He goes, thanks. So John's in the trailer,
Wow.
and I'm outside, and all of a sudden, Frank comes to me live with 300 million viewers and says, Bobby, I want you to do a stand up and tell me what's going on. Ready? Three, two, one, go to Bobby. Now, how many interviews do you think I had ever,
Yeah,
or
like
how many
none.
on
Right.
camera
Right. Right.
segments had I ever done in my life? Zero, right?
Right.
So now I'm in like the biggest moment of the tournament and I'm it. So it was very nerve-wracking, but I got through it. And sure enough, just said what I had told John and said, I don't think it's going to be a penalty and stated the reasons why. And that's the way it came out. And so everything worked out fine. And that's how I got my start with CBS.
What a start. Boy, I had never heard that is incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah.
So you're with them, as you say, for a long time. And then I know you turned 50 in 2010. And what made you decide to go back to competitive golf on the senior tour?
So, a lot of personal reasons. I was remarried, had a really great new wife, was super supportive. My kids were pretty much grown. It's kind of a new phase of life.
Sure.
And I, I've always been one of those who wants to live a life of no regrets, right? I don't want to look back and say, what would have
Sure.
happened
Of
if?
course. Yeah.
And so my wife and I talked about it, and I started training. It was actually Bernhard had a lot to do with it. I'm at Bernhard's house. Um, I was 47, and I'm hanging out at Bernhard's house for a couple days in West Palm. And he says, Bobby, why don't we go play nine holes? I said, okay. So we go on his home course, and we have a little match, and we both shoot three under par for nine holes. And he says, Bobby, your game is not so bad. You know, you should consider coming out with us on the Champions Tour. And I said, well, I'm actually kind of toying with the idea, Bernie. And he says, no, you should come. So he talks me into it. And by the time I turned 50, I had gotten, as prepared as I could possibly be prepared and went out and played. And in the second tournament, shot 65, 64. The two opening rounds set the all-time tournament record for the first two rounds, and then shot 73 and totally blew it in the final round. with a triple bogey on the seventh hole. But you know, I loved my time on the senior
Yeah,
tour. It
that
was
was fun, right? You enjoyed it. You had success there. You enjoyed it, right?
yeah, seven top fives, but never won. Um, and I think I was really behind. The game had kind of blown by me in the 15, it was 15 years that I hadn't competed really,
Right, it's
except
a long time.
a couple tournaments here and there. And I had clubs that were, you know, 17 years old. And the ball, I didn't know what ball to use. And I'm
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
Bernhard, you know, and it's like he's saying, Bobby, you should try this shaft. And I play this ball. So I'm basically using everything Bernie's using and trying to figure out the game. And and what I did find out though, it was hard being a non-exempt player on the Champions Tour
Hmm.
because I was very fortunate to get a lot of sponsors exemptions, but I'd only won once on the PGA Tour, and I had had two like incredibly close calls that I should have won three times. And had I won twice, I would have been exempt for 2 years on the Champions Tour.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
it would have been a completely different scenario. But as it was with only one tour win, I had basically no status. And so, first year I went to Q school, didn't make it, but then I got a bunch of sponsors exemptions, and I'm totally redoing my putting stroke and a lot of stuff going on, trying to build my golf game to get ready that I
Sure.
haven't been competing in so long. And you know, aiming point comes along, and I'm trying to read greens with this new aiming point concept.
Right,
Just a
right.
lot of new stuff, and new clubs, and trying to put it all together. But bottom line was, as a sponsor's invite, you have a lot of other responsibilities. You play a lot of pro-ams, you got to do a lot
Sure.
of dinner engagements. And over the years, it was hard because I spent so much energy in pro-ams and doing dinners and events that I didn't really get to work on my game as much as I
Hmm.
did to. And I think that really, I struggled with that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Listen, you touched on equipment, and before, and I do want to circle back to the teaching stuff with Impact Zone, but before we get back to that, just because you mentioned the equipment, which is always a favorite topic of mine. You and I are about this, I mentioned earlier, about the same age. So, we grew up persimmon woods, nothing looking like a 460cc head, that's
Right.
for sure. But a lot of balls that, you miss those spinners, you could duck hook that in a nanosecond. Just really, really different than what it is today. And I'm just sort of curious. I mean, I have my thoughts. You probably could sense from the way I'm teeing this up, but, in terms of the equipment, but and the other thing I'll just throw out on the table, I always get so amused when and I think they did this at the TBC last year before the tournament, where they'll give the pros, an old persimmon wood and watch them try to hit it. And it's like, Ludwig gets up there, with his gorgeous swing. That ball flight doesn't look like it does with, the metal drive. What's your
Yeah.
kind of take on all that and what it's sort of done for the game? And I mean,
Lots of
it's so
thoughts there.
different. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Larry,
curious to this.
lots and lots of thoughts there. So first of all, take you back. I've always been one who's really been interested in the future of the game when it comes to equipment.
Yeah.
So years ago, I remember I'm playing in college, my junior year, my last year in college. We're playing on a Riverside, and a man by the name of Chuck Brenkus, who was best friends with Gary Adams, and
Oh,
Gary, who later founded TaylorMade,
sure.
founded Coast Cast, and he had created the first metal wood. And Chuck brought me before the last round on the driving range a prototype of the very first metal wood, the original one with the pin in the bottom of it,
Yeah.
and asked me to hit some shots with it on the range. So, I'm getting ready. I've got in the lead of this college tournament, and I'm on the range hitting, and my coach comes over and gets pissed at me. Like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just trying out this new thing. It's called a metalwood. It looks really intriguing to me. And so I had to put it away because coach got really pissed. later to that day, my roommate Richard Zokel shoots 30 on the front nine and ties me going into the back nine as I had just hit my second shot way over the green on 10. And coach comes up to me as I'm going over to my ball way over the green and says, Richard just shot 30 on the front nine. You and he are tied. So after what happened on the range that morning, and then now I'm in trouble on 10, and Richard's just going crazy, having the round of his life. So I hold it from back there behind the trees,
Oh
behind the
my.
green
Oh
for
my.
birdie, and went on to shoot 30 on the back nine and won
Wow.
the tournament
Wow.
by four. But that's another side. So in that process, though, I really liked that metalwood. So that was started the relationship between me and Gary Adams.
Okay.
And then when I was on tour and Gary then started TaylorMade, I became their poster child along with Jim Simons and Ron Streck and Jan Stevenson. We were the first four to sign with
Wow. Wow.
TaylorMade.
Okay.
And I was the first one to ever use a metalwood on national television.
Wow. I
They,
did not know that.
During the 1981 Buick Open, I hit my second shot on the 16th hole at Warwick Hills, and Ben Wright had the call with CBS and said, "Well, that's some kind of fairway metal the young man is using. I've never seen such thing." So that's how my history with metalwood. So that you know how many CCs that original
Oh,
TaylorMade
it's
was?
tiny. I mean, compared to what it
It
is
was
now.
110
Yeah, yeah,
CCs.
it doesn't surprise me. It's
And
nothing
now they're
compared to today.
460, right?
Right, right.
Um, so how has the game changed? Well, let's talk about the golf ball for a sec.
Yeah.
The golf ball has had a tremendous uh, change. Now, back in the early 2000s, the USGA tested all the balls with the Iron Byron, and they were testing it at 110 miles an hour club head speed. And the ball speed, there were certain limits to the ball speed coming off the face, and the .830 COR rebound was in effect with all the clubs, and it was all tested at 110 miles an hour. Well, the problem is the manufacturers are smarter than the USGA, and so they started developing golf balls that would exponentially go farther at 120 miles an hour at club head speed. And they found that they could actually put an energy core in the middle of the golf ball that, when compressed at a higher club head speed, will go exponentially farther. And the tour players were starting to get much faster club head speeds. They were starting to work out and
Sure.
learning more and more about how to do that. So all of a sudden, some of these, I'll never forget one year, Ernie Els and I had the same driving distance on tour one year, and the next year he was hitting it 20 yards by me.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, and my club head speed wasn't as high as his, but we were hitting at the same distance. So, um, so with that, um, this new golf ball comes out, and all of a sudden, these guys are hitting it 50 yards longer, right? They're developing 125 miles an hour
Right,
at club
right,
head speed, and the ball's going 330 in the air. And these 7,000 courses that have been developed are pitch and putts.
right,
And Tiger's hitting it on 11 at Augusta, and those pine trees down the right side aren't even in play because he just
right,
carries it
right,
over
right, right,
320 and
right,
carries over all of them and hits sand wedges. So now they got to redesign Augusta National and
right.
try to tiger proof it. And all these things are happening in the world of golf because the golf ball suddenly is exploding at 120 plus miles an hour at club head speed. So now the USGA is really, they can't disallow the ball because the ball is allowed according to the USGA standards. So they'll be in a big lawsuit if they say no. So now they got to change the standard. And so they start testing at 120 miles an hour club head speed and change the speed of the ball coming off the face figures. But they had already lost the handle on how far the ball was flying. And so the damage was done, and there was really nothing that could substantially be done to rectify how far the golf ball was traveling. And then you add the .830, which the USJ still has in place, but with that golf ball, and then they started learning that launch and spin has this um, configuration that when you launch it higher with less spin, the ball really goes that much farther. So all that came into play. So the technology has it's branched out, and it's changed. Um, it's changed the game. Like for example, few people know this, but like the long drivers that win the long driving championship, their loft on their drivers are between 4 and 5 degrees,
Right. Right.
and they hit up on the ball 10 degrees because what they're trying to do is to launch it at 17 degrees with 1700 spin rate. That's the maximum, right?
Excellent. That's the optimum. Yeah.
And so back then, the tour players were launching at 9.5 with 3,000 spin rate, and the ball's going nowhere. Now the average tour pro launches at about 11 degrees with 2,400 spin rate, and the ball's going pretty far. But if they can learn to launch it higher, 14, 15 degrees down at 1,900 to 2,000 spin rate, it goes exponentially further, which is what Bryson has figured out. So you got all this going on, and how do you do that? How do you don't want to change your swing for one club in the bag because you're hitting down on everything else, and do you really want to hit up on the driver? Well, then you get the accuracy versus distance play, and then start playing that game where the average tour pro hits down on it 1 degree with the driver, and these long drive guys are hitting up on it 10 degrees. So all this kind of stuff, of course, they can't find fairways, and it's a big deal to find fairways on the PGA Tour. So all these kind of things coming into play, and, when for a guy like me trying to go and play in the Champions Tour and trying to figure all this out
Right.
was, but it was a great education. Which when I founded the Impact Zone and started writing books and teaching these kind of things and educating people on how to best work through these everything, right? And it's all about impact and improving your impact and making your impact better, but then also understanding what it is that you're trying to create and how are you going to improve your game as a result of it.
I agree. And before we get to the school, just one other question for you, kind of on the equipment stuff. I mean, do you sort of feel like it's flattened the skill level out there at all? I mean, in other words, I mean that's what I mean as just as a consumer. I mean, I sort of feel I'll throw this on the table and you can react to it. I mean, I sort of someone like Rory is a generational driver of the golf ball. I have to feel like if we were didn't have 460cc heads, and had something more akin to traditional equipment, the gap, the delta between the uber skilled people like him would actually be bigger than it is. It just feels like, it's sort of when I have a 460cc head, I can swing so much harder. I mean, it's one thing if you want to generate that club head speed with a small sweet spot and can hit it, God bless. But I mean, with that big a head, it just is like you can just swing from the heels because the off-center hits are not nearly penalized as much as they were before. And so I kind of wonder and curious your thoughts if it sort of has a flattening effect on the skill level.
You're right on the mark, Larry. It's exactly how I feel. If you go back to when they first started taking statistics on the PGA Tour, you go back to the early 80s when they started doing this. Dan Pohl was the longest driver on the
Right.
tour,
I
and
remember.
he had an average driving distance of 277. And we were all like, wow, that's really long. And I would come along and I was 260 and I was, middle of the pack. And the Corey Pavins and um, some of the Lauren Roberts and Calvin Peets, they were Fred Funk, they were at the bottom and they were like 240, 245. So there was maybe a 30 to 35 yard gap between the shortest hitter on the tour and the longest hitter. Now there's like a 60-yard gap or 70-yard gap, right? That gap is so wide because of the golf ball, right? And so what's happened is, and when I was coaching Bryson, he and I had a lot of discussion about this, and I think I was always in favor of him changing his swing and going to his long ball swing. He had two different swings, and even though he won the NCAA and the USAM with his control swing, um, he only had 110 miles an hour club head speed back then.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he started working with Greg Roscoff, and he really not through anything I was working with him on. Greg got his swing speed up to 117 with the same swing. But then we'd be working together and he'd show me this other swing and he could produce 130 miles an hour club head speed.
Wow, what a difference. God.
And I'm like, dude, this is what you need to go with because there's such an advantage on tour to being able to drive it that long. It's
Right,
crazy, right?
right,
So, and if you look at all the superstars in the game, all of them, it was that way even when I was playing, with Nicholas hit it far and Seve Ballesteros hit it far and Norman hit it far and Palmer wasn't short, right? These guys were all long hitters, but then as soon as the ball situation, now all of a sudden they're driving it exponentially farther.
right,
So it's becoming an even bigger gap where the Calvin Peets, who won 11 times in a 4-year span on the PGA Tour, that doesn't exist today.
no, sure doesn't.
And so how do you bring that shot making back to the game? That's what really the
Right,
question you're asking.
exactly.
And it's a very good question because, first of all, the ball doesn't spin as much
Right,
as it used to. It
absolutely.
penetrates the wind.
Yeah,
We used to have to hit these shots into the wind, into a 30-mile-an-hour wind. We're hitting 5 irons from 120 yards.
right.
These little chippy shots.
Yeah,
And
chippy,
now,
right,
now they get up with that same wind and they just hit a 9 iron. It goes right through the wind, goes right up on the green.
right.
It's a different game. And with the length that they're driving the ball, they're wedging into all these 470-yard par fours.
Exactly, right.
And it's like, what's a 5 iron? You don't even use a 5 iron anymore, except second shots on your 600-yard par fives.
Right, exactly, exactly,
So
exactly.
so and then the nuances, there's still, and I will say this, there's still courses. Colonial and Hilton Head are two
I
courses,
was
and
going to say
Pebble.
Harbor Town. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Those are still three courses where you shot Riviera to a degree, still courses where shot making is rewarded, where you got to work the ball. And probably my favorite of all those is Hilton Head because Hilton Head, the fairways are really narrow. And if you're 10 yards out of the middle of the fairway, you're or in of the center line, you're still in the fairway, but you're blocked out by a tree. And now you got to shape a shot. You got to hit a trajectory and a shape around a tree to get it on these tiny little greens. I love that.
yeah,
We
I do
need
too.
more of that in
I
golf.
totally agree. Yeah.
So it gets back to how do we restore that becomes a golf course architectural question. And here is the problem with golf in the architectural realm today. And I've designed a few courses
I
myself.
know. Yeah.
Uh, and what traditionally happens, because it's money driven business, what traditionally happens is the layout is done on topo and instructions are given for everything to be cleared 60 feet each side of the center line. So the architect doesn't even go out to the property and they just give the instruction, I want everything cleared 60 feet each side of the center line. So now you got 40 yards of completely cleared corridors and all these beautifully, potentially beautiful specimen trees that could have been there, that could have played a significant part in the um, design and the strategy of the whole are gone. And in its place are bunkers and water hazards, and they'll throw a couple trees, and maybe in 100 years they'll be tall enough to play in the hole. But it's in my opinion destroyed the design of the game. And
Yeah,
the Pete Dye's had it right. Um, and to go in there in the few courses I've done, I have refused to clear 60 feet each side of the center line when doing a golf course. I go out there and flag my trees that I want to keep.
sure.
And principally, I mean, the best course I've done is the what used to be called the Payne Stewart course in Branson, Missouri,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
but it's now called Branson Hills Golf Club. Um, and when I designed that golf course, I made like 40 trips to the
Wow.
site.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot.
with my hands, we're going through trekking through deep woods and getting ticks all over us and everything else, but I'm tying ribbons on these trees that I want to keep and wouldn't let them cut them down. And that's why that's a course where you've got to shape your shots, and that's it's a missing element of the game today.
It's a missing element, and I just think it's a less interesting I mean, I pick it at the elite level, watching it as a consumer, it's a less interesting product to me.
It is.
But which is
It
unfortunate.
definitely is that. And then yeah, and then that tables into the other less interesting product is what's happening in the PGA Tour's response to Live Golf.
Yeah, so tell me about the perfect segue. So tell me about that. What do you think about what's going on? And I'm not even sure with Brian Roloff now running the show. I mean, I hear all these different things about, kind of a, shorter schedule, relegation stuff. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's lots of changes seem to be in the air.
Yeah, sadly, I mean, what happened with Live has really, I think, taken the tour in a direction that is not for the benefit of the long term of the sport. And it's really tragic in a way, what Live did and the fact that so many players left to go to Live, and it caused the tour great harm, and it caused the tour to rethink their product, and it caused the tour to make a bunch of changes to their product. Right here at Pebble Beach, right? We got the
Right,
AT&T in two
right,
weeks.
right.
And I was like, gosh, can't wait to see the celebrities, and there's such a great spirit about that
Oh, yeah.
tournament. And gosh, I remember, going into the Mission Ranch and John Denver performing and all these
Yeah,
great
yeah.
musicians getting up and performing, and it was just such a great feel. Oh, it's one of those other
Signature, right.
events,
Signature events, right.
signature
Right.
events, 20 big money, reduced field. Oh, no celebrities. Oh, no pro-am. Oh, okay. Well, we'll go watch Rory shoot 65 every day at Pebble. That's great. But um and Scotty, Rory and Scotty will go, it's basically two guys in the field. And 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 so it just takes some of the wind out of the spirit of that tournament.
For sure.
And there's always, and I wouldn't say always, but often storylines about, you know, guy, no, little known pro, Monday qualified, and he's shooting 63 at Spyglass Hill, and he's, right there. Where'd this guy come from? And those are great human interest
They
stories.
sure are. They absolutely are.
And it also is at the core of what golf is. Golf is a game that has always been open, and the tour
Right.
has always been open. If you're
Right.
good enough, tee it up, go qualify, figure out a way, get on there, right? I mean, look at Lee
Ultimate
Trevino,
meritocracy. Absolutely.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And so now we don't have that. It's becoming, and the senior tour was that way when I was on it, and still is. It's a closed door. It's becoming this closed door club where what's wrong with complete free enterprise? That's what our country's built on.
Right.
And it's what the tour has always been and the product that it's always been. And it's created so many great stories over the years. And we're diluting the product, creating all these signature events, which is great for the pocketbook of these top players. But I would rather reward them in a different way and keep the openness of the competition and keep the bigger fields. Gosh, what's wrong with 144 players in the field? That's not so
Right.
bad. And
Right.
yeah, we can go play three courses. And yeah, you may get that occasional Ed Dougherty story. We're leading the
Oh, good
AT&T
sir.
and
Right.
playing the
Right.
17th at Cyprus in 50-mile-an-hour winds, and the ball kept rolling off the green, and the tour official wouldn't call it, and he
Right.
ended up missing the cut when he had the lead.
Yeah. I remember that.
Those
Yeah.
are incredible stories.
They
That
are.
those days are gone.
Yeah. It's sad, right? It's sad. I'm not sure where it's all going to go, but it's a lot different than it used to be for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's really the live response, the tour's response to live that has created that to try to keep the players. And if live didn't exist, they would never have made those kind of
for
decisions.
sure. Yeah, that's for sure. What would you, I mean, what would you, if you were running the show, and Liv shows up, what would you have you thought about how you would have maybe responded to it? Or is it, um,
I
curious?
would have rewarded the guys to stay for
Yeah.
sure. Um, and I think it was brilliant. Um, the tour was bleeding money for all the lawsuits that the Live Tour caused, and the I thought it was brilliant that the five governing organizations of the game of golf all came together and said we will never give them world ranking points, so they will never be a viable tour because we're not going to do that. And that was the juggler nut that is ultimately going to lead to the Live Tour's crumble. They
Yeah.
can't continue to lose their billions of dollars a year, and they can't support themselves. Nobody wants it. And, Kepka is the first domino to fall. There's going to be more to come, guarantee. Bryson wants 500 million to stay. Okay. But they're all going to come back. Even Patrick Reed says it's the
I
PGA
saw
Tour
that
is the
just the
best
other
tour
day,
on
right?
tour,
He said, I
right?
saw that. Yeah,
The bad
absolutely.
boy of
The
all.
bad boy of golf.
And so it's what's going to happen to live, give it a few more years, it's going to disappear. And I hope when it does that the tour starts to go back to its roots of what it once was. And I don't mind a few signature world events where you get the European guys and the top guys to come. I think that's fine. I think Norman first proposed that and pushed
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
and there's some benefit to that. It is a worldwide game, and why not celebrate the best players in the game? But the tour itself has the best tour, and it is the best players, better strength of field than anywhere in the world. And let's celebrate that with a bunch of tournaments, and let's have that road to get on the tour with the whatever we're going to call the tour lead. It allows you to get exempt on the PGA Tour. Let's have that, right?
Right.
And let's create open qualifyings every week. So we get four spots, and a guy goes out and shoots 65. He's hot and he gets to play. Great. It's a great side story. We love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I will get you out of here on this. You've been so generous with your time, but I didn't want to leave without wrapping up with kind of what you're doing now with the teaching, with the impact zone. We talked a little bit about that when we were talking about instruction, but maybe talk about, kind of since you've retired from the Champions Tour and what you're doing with teaching and what that's like.
So that's what I'm doing full time now. And as you know, Larry, I developed impact-based teaching,
Right.
became the first ever master professional of teaching and coaching with the PGA that is also a PGA Tour winner.
Right. I saw that. Yeah.
I'm I'm really passionate about helping golf get better at teaching. I was saddened to find out that there is nothing within the PGA that trains professionals to become professional teachers of the game. So there's no like accreditation to become a director of instruction or a program that takes you through soup to nuts. And I'm actually developing that myself.
Wow.
And I kind of have it in a beta form, and it's been released on a beta form, but we're developing and going to further it and really push it here in the next couple of years because I want to help golfers teach better. What's happened in the game is that staff professionals do a great job running golf clubs, running memberships, dealing with the members, etc. But they're the only ones allowed to teach at their clubs.
Right.
Nobody
That's
else
true.
is allowed
At
to
a
teach,
private club, that's true. Yeah.
even public clubs. And
Yeah.
so it's become more and more territorial that way, where the best teachers, I've got some really good friends that are great teachers that have been booted out of clubs because their fear is they're taking income away from the staff. And the staff is not trained to be teachers. It's not
Right.
their fault,
Right.
but they're not trained golf instructors. So they're asked to perform surgery on golfers' golf swings when they haven't been to med school. And
Right.
and
Right.
so,
Right. Exactly.
this is where we are in the game of golf. And no wonder we have all these golfers quitting the game. We got 4 million golfers quitting the game every year. And I believe that poor instruction is the core element of this. We're not doing a good job as an industry teaching this game. And how do we best reduce that 4 million number? They're quitting because they're frustrated. The game's
Right.
too hard. They're not
Right.
getting better. And they just say, I can't play the game. Well, the game is hard, but it's got to be taught right. And so my whole stick is that golf is best taught through impact, through understanding how to create your best impact, and not taught through a particular style of swing, which is how the game is predominantly taught today through various teachers. And we're all PGA members, sure,
Right. Right.
but it's not the PGA that trained us, right?
Right.
I was given and earned a master professional accreditation based on my discovery of impact-based teaching, based on my books that I've written, based on my ability to teach, and based on the DVD series that I've put out. So all of these were requirements in order to get that. But it wasn't like the PGA taught me how to do it.
Right.
I wish the PGA would create a program or hire a bunch of us to train their 30,000 professionals how to be better at teaching. It's what we need.
Yeah.
So, and sadly, the game of golf has gone into companies that are managing golf courses now.
Right.
And they basically all have very similar views of golf instruction. It's a way for the staff to earn a little extra money. That's the most important thing to them. And they don't realize the lost opportunity in how good instruction drives revenue and retains memberships. Club Corps recently came out with a study by Ian James that dictated that if you have a high-end golf instruction program at your course, you're going to have an 83% reduction in membership attrition rate.
Wow. That's huge.
It's a huge number. So it's helping the game. Good instruction helps the game. It also helps the clubs keep their members. But there's nothing monitoring that in the budget sheet. The only thing these golf management companies do is they look at golf instruction. It's always the last item on the budget sheet.
Right.
What dollar figure did it earn the club for the year? Oh, $15,000. Big deal. We don't care about it.
Right.
where they're not looking at all the ancillary benefits of what a good instruction program can drive revenue, drive memberships, drive the success in the future of the club, make it recession proof. They're not doing that. And it's a sad tale that's hurt the game.
Wow. What very well said. Well, this is you've contributed so much to the game in so many different areas, player, broadcaster, and it's great that you're doing this in the teaching area. We'll look forward to what you're developing. And Bobby, you've been so generous with your time. This has been a blast for me, chatting with you. It's been great. Thank you so much for
It's
coming on.
it's fun. And one of the things I'm working on that I'll be working on this afternoon, Larry, is my new Master Series programs. That's for every golfer. So if you're interested in learning about how to improve your game, the sixth class Master Series class, and if you graduate, you get a certificate, a player certificate from Impact Zone Golf. So go to impactzonegolf.com
I was just going to
and
ask you for the URL. Impact. So that's the place to go to find all this stuff.
impactzonegolf.com and join the master class. It's a great class. Really helps people understand what is good impact, how they can utilize their style of swing to create good impact. It's a self-study, but it really educates the golfer. They'll learn so much as a result, and it's ultimately something that'll help their game a lot.
Awesome. We will check that out. Thank you, sir. Really great talking to you. Look forward to chatting again. Thanks, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you,
Take
Larry.
care. Bye bye.